Hello everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day today, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to join NSDCAR and former Senator Joel Anderson for a town hall today. To kick this off, my name is Mark Martin. I'm Government Affairs Director for the North San Diego County Association of Realtors, and we're holding this town hall because, as we know, November is coming up sooner than later. And we have former Senator Joel Anderson. He is going to be running for San Diego County Supervisor District 2. And we wanted to just give the people of Ramona and the people of the district the opportunity to hear from Mr. Anderson about his plans for the county and where he sees the county going, and specifically Ramona. I grew up in Ramona, and being an old Ramona boy, I know how all the changes have come and affected this beautiful city. And I'm sure a lot of us there are also wondering where the city will be going in the next, in the next 4 years and into the next decade. And today we also have who is a namesake in Ramona, Jan Ryan. She is going to be leading the interview past this and asking the senator questions about his plans and his views on growth and development in the city. So without further ado, Senator Anderson, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for doing this. Normally, we're in a town hall. We're on Main Street. We're somewhere in Ramona doing it, not over the internet. So I apologize. I'm still getting used to this whole system. So I was the state senator for the last 8 years in Ramona, and before that, I was the state assemblyman for 4 years. Ramona is a great community. People move out there for a specific reason. I live in Alpine. Alpine's very similar to Ramona in the sense that we moved out here because we wanted a country lifestyle.
Well, we appreciate you being here. And we have a lot of community members, and on behalf of North San Diego County Association of Realtors and Ramona Real Estate Association and a lot of community members. So I know there's been a lot of questions, and so just looking to get more information on what the job of a supervisor is and why it's important.
Well, number one, it controls land use. That's the big, most important item. But it also controls every aspect of our quality of life. So, for example, as we're going through COVID, the city of San Diego controls all the lakes and access to recreational use of the lakes. In the county, we started a letter writing campaign. We turned in almost 2,000 letters to the Board of Supervisors asking them to step up to make sure that all our lakes would be open. You know, when you're thinking in terms of having recreational use during COVID, fishing, hunting, boating are all COVID-approved activities. So we wanted to make sure that all those lakes were open so that people and families would have a place to go. That was a function of the county. It wasn't the state that was coming down and making that difference. It was the county. When you think in terms of all the roads in Ramona, when you think about the fire safety of Ramona, a lot of it has to do with the county. When I was in the state legislature, I lobbied Governor Schwarzenegger to move the heavy tanker to Ramona earlier because we had a particularly dry year. But most of the time, that's more of a function of the county. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, there's appreciate that. And I think a major concern also is how do you feel about growth and development in general in the district?
Well, look, I want my kids to be able to grow up. I want to see my grandkids without having to move to Phoenix. I think that our kids deserve the same opportunities that we received growing up in East County. And I think that requires more housing. But I think that there has to be a balance to the housing. Look, Ramona, you have 2 ways in and out of Ramona total. That's it. And you are in a fire zone. So I think you have to use some common sense that the roads have to be upgraded before you add too much more in the way of housing in Ramona. But you can be smart about it. There are things that we can be doing. I did a bill I joint authored with a Democrat that said that if you were building a high density, low income housing project and you were within a half a mile of a trolley station, that you would get additional perks. The city or the county would have 90 days to approve your project, and then you could move forward with it, keeping your costs down. So look, I think that we have to put some density in. I think that we have to meet the requirements the state's putting on us, but we have to do it in a way that it improves our life, not ruins our life. You know, in Alpine, I'm on the Highway 8 all the way on down to downtown San Diego. And I know there are changes that we need to make to the highways to improve our lifestyle. One of the other things that's not Ramona necessarily focused, but we have an airport in Gillespie Field where there are 70 acres that are not developed. If we were able to develop those acres, we could take a lot of cars off the freeways because they'll be working closer to home. You know, if you go to the UTC, out of the biotech employees all live in East County. They don't live in La Jolla, they live in our area. So this is a real opportunity to create jobs and opportunity that keep us closer to home.
Yeah, and that's what I think we all agree on too, is controlled growth, you know, common sense that benefits the community as a whole and the county as a whole. We have some unique talent here in Ramona, some very knowledgeable people, and just seeing what your thoughts are and getting an open communication for ideas
Sure.
that benefit the community rather than just being, you know, turned down by the county. There's been some great projects that have just flat turned down.
Well, look, I don't know everything, and I'm not going to know everything until I get to the job, because when I was in the legislature, I had a community coffee at least once a year in Ramona every year, and I invited everybody in the community to come in and talk to me. I'm going to have that same open door policy, and I want to know what the community wants. You know, when I first got elected, I invited all the school boards, all the water boards, all the city council members to come meet with me, and everyone said, "Why are you inviting me?" And I said, "Well, how am I supposed to know how to represent you if you don't tell me what you need or what you want?" And so it's really important to have strong communication. That's what I've done in the past. That's what I'll do in the future. And, you know, my cell phone's been on every ballot, and it's out there, and I'm happy to give it again. But I welcome people calling me because I'm trying to do the best I can. And I can't do it unless I know what people are thinking.
Yeah, and we've had a few issues like inspectors and extra fees for, I know a builder that was building, he's built out here for probably 30 years, and the last home he built, it was a $2,000 extra inspection fee for the driveway, and he said an inspector came out once or twice and arbitrarily made some, you know, different requirements. So just checking to see if you could be proactive on issues like that.
So people have said, well, how can you impact it, because the COO runs the county and nothing's ever really done. Well, in the legislature, all the state employees work for the governor, but we vote on the budget. And so we have legislative oversight. Well, the supervisors, if they chose to use it, they have legislative oversight as well, because they vote on the budget. So before I vote on a budget, I'm going to ask every department head to come before the committee, before the Board of Supes, and explain what they're doing and why they're doing it. And part of the issue is everywhere I've gone in the district, there's a million of these stories. And it's not just the planning department, it's across the board. There's a fellow who's building 12 homes out here in Alpine. The inspector popped by and he said, "Hey, I haven't even started. Don't, I don't need you yet. I'll call you when I need you." And this happened 5 or 6 more times. And the guy said, "Well, it's just in the neighborhood, so I thought I'd check." Well, long story short, he got a call from the county that they had gone through his deposit. So he went back and complained, And they said, well, you can ask for an audit. So he asked for an audit. He had all his money but $2,000 returned to him. He said, well, what happened to the other $2,000? And they said, well, somebody had to pay for the audit. You know what? We're not, I mean, it's humorous in a sad way. When your elected officials defend the bureaucracy against the people that've been there for too long. My job is to represent my constituents. And so in that case, we're not going to continue that practice. You can get 100% of your money back. It's ridiculous to be right and still be punished. All it does is incentivize people to do the wrong thing. And I think that we need to stop that practice.
Well, thank you for that. That is refreshing to hear, because that's what we've come up against a lot. A lot of the builders, I know it needs to be controlled growth, but there is some common sense, like you
Right.
just mentioned. So that's so good to hear.
Well, I don't know if the realtors did the study, but recently a study was done in San Diego County, and I can't remember who it was, but they said 40% of the cost of housing is the cost of doing business with government. And when you talk to some people and it takes 4 to 6 years to get their permits completed, that's too long. That's unreasonable. When you can go to other states and other locations and get a permit in 6 weeks, we shouldn't be spending 6 years.
Yeah, thank you for that too. It should be more of a partnership where we can work together rather than not. And
Yeah.
so appreciate that. Also, there's an issue in Ramona, maybe other places too, where we have a lot of vacant lots on Main Street that are vernal pools. We have one building that's dilapidated on Main Street that we haven't been able to do much with. So I don't know your thoughts on that. We believe in ecology to a degree. And
Well, look, the vernal pools are, frequently a truck has left a hole. It's filled with water, and you've got these fairy shrimp in these vernal pools. Look, you have a vacant lot on Main Street that I think it was in the 90s that they found these fairy shrimp, and our current supervisor sided with the shrimp over the people. I'm with the people. Look, I want a great environment. I drive an electric car. I'm not trying to destroy the environment, but it's got to make sense. And when you talk about a dilapidated building and not being able to fix it up and to make it useful again, that makes no sense. The other part is, we have, not in Ramona, but we have in other parts of the county, a real issue with homelessness. And yet the county is still buying more land to put in trust as opposed to taking care of the people. I think it's important that we put people first.
yeah, thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. And it feels sometimes that there is no common sense. So it's refreshing to hear that. And I have a question that I have been asked to ask. The real estate market is suffering from record low inventory, and the state of California is in a housing crisis. And you may have answered this already, but I don't know if you want to expand on it. In what way can you help Ramona be a part of fast tracking housing and development at a responsible growth rate sufficient enough to make an impact in the housing crisis?
Well, I think the tipping point for Ramona is the fact that there's only 2 ways in and out of Ramona. I think that we really need to look at improving the roads and making sure that people are fire safe. Putting people in harm's way makes no sense to me. On the flip side, we have a crisis and we need to do something. Now, one of the things I plan to do is to fight Sandag. Sandag took $400 million of our money, $400 million that was to go to the 67 and to go to the 52. And what they did is they commandeered it, even though we voted to increase the taxes on ourselves because we were promised specific repairs. Now we're not getting those repairs, and they took our money anyway. I think that we should be standing up and telling them that they need to return our money if they're not going to build the roads that we support. And their compromise was to give us $92 million back to do another environmental study. All that money can only be spent on environmental study. We've already done that environmental study over a decade ago, and it's expired. So wasting $92 million if you don't plan to build a road makes no sense to me. But there's nobody standing up saying, no, we have a fire safe issue, and we need to be concerned about fixing that 67 so that people in Ramona can feel as safe as the people in downtown San Diego.
Yeah, that is true. We do need the fire safety first. And what separates you from your opponent?
Well, I would be fighting Sandig for stealing our money. He's actually the person that stole it. So we couldn't be any further apart on how to do things. When you look at how Poway has been developed, it's a beautiful community, but he proposed to solve the homeless issue by allowing the city to build granny flats in your backyard, and the city would pay for it if you would house a homeless person there for 12 years. I don't want my neighbors getting granny flats to put homeless people in their backyard. I think it's just a silly idea, but yet he went on KUSI and proposed it. Look, I don't have all the answers, but I have an open door, and I'm eager to hear what other people have to say, because I think I know a good answer when I hear it. We sent a man to the moon, and yet we can't solve any of this. It seems like the longer we go, the fewer politicians that have the backbone to stand up to get things done that we need in our community. I live here. I want my kids to live here. I want my grandkids to live here. And I'm going to fight to make this the best community possible. And all I see is people trying to force upon us things that they don't want in their community, like pedophiles and in projects that don't make sense. But you know what? When I hear them talk about putting high density, low income in Ramona or Alpine or Pine Valley, it makes no sense. These people don't have transportation. They should be within a half a block or closer to a trolley stop. They should be on a transit corridor and not located where the person has no chance of holding a job because they can't get to a job. So I think some of this common sense stuff, I don't understand why people aren't more outspoken about it, and they're accepting those types of projects in their community when the infrastructure doesn't support it.
If elected, how do you plan to engage with realtors and brokers in Ramona on key issues and builders?
So I've
the
always had an open door policy. Every time I had a key vote come up, or every time there was a community issue, we invited everybody into my office when I was in the legislature. All the realtors came by my office locally and in the Capitol. That policy is going to stay the same. You know, when y'all came in and talked to me about different bills and about different issues, it was very insightful and helpful to me. I expect to continue those policies moving forward.
And also you mentioned infrastructure, and that's key, especially being in a fire area.
Right.
So I don't know what your plans are with that and the roads. Like you said, we have two means of, or major, and I know other communities as well in the county. So I don't know what your plans are for that. We've had, I counted them, approximately 9 build home projects that are now county and state owned, that were bought by county and state, which was going to be hundreds, if not thousands of homes here in Ramona. So I get that. So what is your solution for roads and infrastructure?
Well, first,
again, we're looking at planned development. Sure. We don't want crazy growth, but.
Sure. So there are a few things. One, there's some low-lying fruit. You have a lot of signs in Ramona the county hasn't maintained. When you talk to some of the firefighters, they don't have GPS for all of Ramona. There's dead spots. And when those signs fade out and you can't read them, you're putting people's lives at risk. You're putting people's homes at risk. So I think that going back and fixing some of the signs initially is really important. I do think that we have to look at expanding 67. I don't know how we can move forward without doing some expansion to make sure that people can get in and out. You know, I had the good and poor fortune of being in the legislature through some major fires, and when Ramona was really hit hard. In fact, I came up there. I don't know if you remember, but the county was taking so long in rebuilding homes, people were losing their Prop 13 benefits. You know, you only have a window of opportunity to rebuild, and if you don't, you lose your Prop 13 benefits. And they couldn't get their plans through the county quickly enough, although the county said at the time they were streamlining it. Now, sometimes there were extenuating situations that slowed it down. But I went back and I changed the law twice, giving extensions so that people wouldn't lose their Prop 13 benefits and wouldn't get socked with new taxes because they went through a disaster. I went up there, trying to think if it was the Witch Creek or the Cedar Fire, and we had all the insurance companies all up there, and it was just a disaster. By the next fire, the insurance companies did a far, far better job. So, you know, I think that we need to think in terms of, we're going to have more fires. How are we going to handle it? And will those new projects be able to stand up to it? Shelter in place is a very, very important aspect of it. Plus, knowing that you have a reliable power source. I mean, when winds kick up, a lot of times SDG&E shuts off the power, and making sure that people have generators and backup is really, really important, I believe. I live in Harbison Canyon. There's never been a fire in San Diego County that didn't come through my neighborhood. And so I'm very keen to what that means to families when you have to evacuate.
Thank you for that. And there also, we've had an issue with the Mount Woodson parking, that the county bought the property. They were planning on doing a housing project and giving the county an easement, but the county bought the property instead. So those homes are not going to be developed, but it seems like it has been stalled possibly. I don't know what has been taking the time. So we have an issue. Yeah, it's been over a year, and I know it's a dangerous. So maybe there's any suggestions you have to fast track projects like that. We had a road put in, and luckily San Vicente Road, and they put a bike path and horse trail, but it was right next to the road. So pretty much unusable, unsafe. So things like that. Do you have solutions for?
Well, you know,
some things?
It was just in the last 6 months is when we spent the 30 million on putting more land into trust. And if the county had used that 30 million to fix that problem, I mean, I don't understand the priority of the county. They're all about preserving land, which is great, but we suffer. I've driven up 67. It's a disaster. And why they don't have the parking done, why they haven't fixed this with that 30 million, to me, that'd be a much higher priority than putting more land into trust and taking it off the tax rolls. You know, every time we take land and put it into a preserve, we no longer tax it. That means you and I have to pay higher taxes to have the same services. I want to do stuff that reward us, not penalize us, and diverting our tax dollars and not fixing our communities, our neighborhoods, and our roads. My road is full of potholes. When you get off the freeway to come to my house, everyone's driving down the middle of the road, so there's one tire in the center of each lane until they see another car because it's so beat up. Yet we have $30 million to spend on buying more land from private sellers. I mean, it makes no sense to me. We should be doing things that increase our quality of life.
What plans do you have for developing properties on Main Street in Ramona? I know I touched on that with the vernal pools.
Well, I'm not in favor of the vernal pools, but I'd like to talk to your planning department, your planning committee, and I'd like to talk to community members to find out exactly what they want. I don't want to tell you what you're going to get. I want to know what you want, and then I want to go back and fight for it. You know, and I get that not everybody in the community agrees on what should be done and how it should be done, but there's got to be some middle ground where everybody agrees, and we should be moving forward with that. But Ramona's a fairly large community, and it should be robust. You know, you should have all the services that you want and need there. And by the way, every job that we create in Ramona means somebody's not on the freeway, and that's a good thing.
To add, in what ways are you planning on spurring backcountry economic development in the housing construction industry? I think easing red tape would be a good start.
Well, I think that there needs to be an attitude change. Right now, the county looks at things and says, well, why should we do it? Well, if it's your private property, the question should be, why shouldn't we do it? The county should be better partners with landowners. If I own 200 acres in the backcountry, I should not have the value stolen from under me by limiting what I can do on that land. Now, I'm not suggesting that they do something silly or crazy, but there's no reason. I've talked to developer after developer who have had 400 acres. They wanted to develop 200 homes on 400 acres. These are 1 acre properties. We're not talking about high density projects that create just log jams on our freeways. We're talking about nice projects that allow people to move up in homes, creating entry-level homes for others. So look, we need to be doing this, but my feelings from talking to people in the district, in just my experience of living in the district, is the county starts with no, and then you have to pry them into a yes answer. Shouldn't start that way. It should start off with, yeah, we're going to do it, but these are the things that need to be done to make sure it happens. And it's just the opposite. How can so many people have so many outrageous complaints, like the one I described on the grading, that ran up the cost of those houses? I mean, we only looked at the cost that cost them financially, but time-wise, of having to go through the whole process of an audit and go through all those issues, this makes no common sense. But the county has gone to this process where they charge you for their services, and the idea was to make everything more accountable. What it did was put a price on your head, and the county makes more money by mistreating you. It doesn't make more money by treating you right. And that's where we have to make that shift. This should be about lifting the people in our community and being accountable to them as a government. And I really feel the county's blown it.
Would you be willing to set up a meeting with a few realtors and a few developers that are well versed with the county procedure and federal process?
Yeah, absolutely.
Too, right? That would be.
By the way, I need that input if we're going to fix it. If nobody tells me what the problems are, then I don't know what to address. I only know what people tell me because they've gone through it. Because when you talk to staff, they're not going to have any problems. It's the people who are going through the hardship that really need to come forward so that I can help them.
I agree. And again, I've talked to so many people that have great ideas and that are very well versed in what is going on with the county and how to make things better. And I'm not talking about explosive, crazy growth. I'm talking about controlled growth that is going to benefit everybody. So that's going to make a lot of sense. And the time and cost to develop and build has sent so many out of the county. And
right.
I know some developers here, even in Ramona, that are looking at leaving because they have become so frustrated.
Well, if 40% of your cost has to do with government and you're building a $200,000 home, that's $80,000. That home wouldn't be 200, it'd be 120. So when you start thinking in terms of the cost, you're building a $400,000 home and 40%, that's $160,000 of the cost of the home. So we can do a lot better job. Then you're going to have to pay something, but it shouldn't be 40%. It should be like 5 or 10.
Cool. I wanted to ask you, so Sandag, as we've come to know it as the lifeblood of San Diego and San Diego County, and it kind of rules over a lot of aspects of our daily life. Um, so I know, harking back to what you were talking about fighting at Sandag, what issues with Sandag are looming for the county that you see? And also, how do you plan to work within in that organization to ensure that the district's values and issues are fought for and represented?
So I think there's three major issues. Some of this has gotten a lot of press. Maybe some people don't know about it. They have shifted most of our money to develop a grand trolley station. They want to build this pyramid to trolleys and to buses in downtown San Diego. And they want us to conform our lifestyle, our rural lifestyle, to their urban solutions. It's absolutely nuts. It's crazy. It doesn't work for San Diego. For that to work, you actually have to have job employment in a central location where it makes sense. Coming from Alpine, trying to get downtown, I can't do that round trip in a day. I mean, it's ridiculous. So thinking that that's going to replace my car, it's never going to happen. The second thing is they've made a big push to convert lanes into bike lanes. You can do that downtown, and maybe that works for you. But nobody's going to bicycle from Ramona to the emergency room. No one's going to ride their bike to a doctor's appointment from Alpine. I'm sorry. Look, I get that Nathan Fletcher is a healthy guy and he rides his bike a lot. I'm 60. I'm not riding my bike a lot. And I don't think it's responsible to put people's health care in jeopardy because they can't get to the hospital or to the doctor's appointment in a timely fashion because we prioritize bicycles over people. Now, I love bike lanes. I think it's great, but they need to be an additional lane. They shouldn't be in lieu of a current car lane. We don't have enough car lanes already. And then there's a third thing, and I can't think of it. But those are two key issues. As far as I did 453 bills in Sacramento, co-authored or joint authored with Democrats. Solving solutions requires working across party lines. That's not an issue to me at all. What is an issue is putting a bond on the ballot, telling us you're going to fix the 67 and the 52, and then diverting our money to bike lanes and trolley stops. That's not right. It's not fair. We deserve our money back.
So Joel, on that same note, what do you think the recently proposed Transnet plan will do to East County and Ramona and Julian and the rural parts of San Diego County if passed?
Well, I haven't seen all of it, but we're funding and underwriting all this foolishness that we don't get any benefit from. Our freeways aren't going to be any better. Our roads and infrastructure are not going to be better, but it'll be our tax dollars that build these golden roads for San Diego City. And I think it's wrong.
So with that said, also, if you could go into it, because I don't know if all of our attendees are aware of how Sandag works as far as voting goes and why it's important to have the right people on, because I know East County and North County have had a coalition against San Diego County because of the weighted votes. Can you explain kind of the dynamics of that and how that works, seeing as how you'll be a supervisor?
So we had a fair representative process, but we had gridlock a lot because sometimes San Diego would want to impose its will on us and want us to pay for their shortcomings. So we'd get gridlock. So a couple of years ago, Lorena Gonzalez passed a bill that said they could use a weighted vote that essentially gave all control to Chula Vista in San Diego. If those two cities agree on something, they literally can force taxes on us, and we never see any of that benefit. And it's wrong. And yet, what are the supervisors doing to stand up for us? Nothing. And we deserve better.
Yeah, and I believe we absolutely do. And I guess going because talking about Sacramento, I don't know how much you know about this, but I'd like to get your views on because we're even doing an event here shortly on split roll, and knowing the age of a lot of the buildings in Ramona, can you give us a little bit of background in your views on that measure and what would happen to Ramona and
Well, I,
other
I'm actually a regional spokesman to oppose split roll. So uh, all split roll is going to do is be another tax that's passed on to the consumer and passed on to us. And it makes business very unpredictable because you don't know what your taxes are going to be from year to year, and it's unfair. Prop 13, because our real estate is so volatile in California, Prop 13 protected both residential and business properties so that people could predict the future. Now, every year, there's been an increase in taxes to government. And if you look at the state budget, if you were to go back a decade ago, our state budget was 86 billion. Today, it's over 200 billion. Do you feel like you've gotten 3 times the services? We've squandered the money. Our schools are not better. Our schools are still suffering. Our roads are not better. Everything that we should be receiving with our tax dollars as a return on our investment, we've fallen short. And then we're given excuses that there's not enough money, we need more money. If you gave them 100% of your salary, it would never be enough. But yet we all would be too poor to provide for ourselves. Look, we sent a man to the moon 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and today we can't solve any issue. We can't build a road. We can't do anything. We need to get people elected that are can-do, not full of excuses. And yet all I hear all the time are nothing but excuses. I think we deserve better.
To go back, so in case people aren't clear on what split roll would do, it would take away the property tax protections from commercial properties. I know a lot of properties in Ramona are older, especially on Main Street. So taking away those protections is going to decimate down.
It's not just commercial, it's mom and pop shops.
Mhm.
You know, I think the dollar limit is $500,000. Name a property that is less than $500,000. I'm not aware of any. And so you're talking about a mom and pop shop that's been there for 30 years and all of a sudden their taxes are going to quadruple. How are they going to stay in business? And by the way, when they lose their business, all the people that they employ are going to be out of work. They're going to be out of work. You know, we should be trying to get people paths to careers. We shouldn't be putting them in breadlines. And that's what this policy is going to do. It's going to harm the very families that are the backbone of our community.
Absolutely. So those are the questions that I had from the association. So I'm going to leave it back to you and Jan. But thank you for answering those.
Yeah, I've had a couple more questions given to me that are stormwater management and Title 24 requirements. So,
Well, some of this is state law. Some of it's state law. These are not laws that I voted in favor of. I spoke against. You know, some of this just doesn't make any sense. Persons working on building a home, building a business, we get a rainstorm and they're having to hire trucks to fill the drain, to drain the water on their land into these trucks so they can, it makes no sense. It's very costly and expensive. And the first time we have a real rain in San Diego, you can't go to the beach because instead of washing off the freeways periodically after accidents in limiting how much goes into the water at any one time, all our beaches are polluted because all of the drains and everything goes out at the same time. So instead of having a little bit, we're having a whole bunch hit at the same time. I think that some of the stuff is good-natured. It's just not working. It's not working, and you're penalizing businesses who are doing their very best. You know, when a truck leaves a property or enters a property, there's an area where the tires have to be washed before they go on the street. These companies will be penalized with huge fines if it's just a little bit of dirt. We're not talking about a lot. We're talking about little. Now look, we've all gone to a job site before where they've turned the road into a slip and slide with mud. That's not the norm. The norm is, one clot of dirt and all of a sudden they're being fined, or they have runoff of water coming off of their property and they're getting fined for it. These are the things that drive the cost of building up exponentially. And then we wonder why nothing's affordable.
Joel, what is your path to victory in November, and why? And I guess in closing too, why should everybody here vote for you?
Well, you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy who stands up and fights for you. I have a nearly 100% voting record with realtors. I have been one of your champions in Sacramento. And if you go and Google any one of your bills, you have a floor speech of mine where I stood up and made the points of why it was a good or bad idea. I believe that we all work hard. Our kids deserve the same opportunities that we received. And I believe that we have a duty to make it happen for them. I don't want to have to visit my kids in Phoenix. I don't want to have to go to Texas or some other state. I moved here in San Diego in '76, and San Diego and East County have been great to me, and have been great to my family. And I think that we deserve more of the same. And I think we're falling short.
Why should our brothers and sisters from all around East County vote for Joel Anderson?
Because you know exactly what you can get. I'm a fighter, and I'm going to stand up and fight for you. And my door is always open. You're always going to have my ear. We're not going to agree on everything, but my wife doesn't agree with me on everything. So that's okay. But you're going to find that you may agree with me more than you do with your spouse.
Okay. And with that,
I'll just finish by saying one last thing. They were not going to open. The county and the city were not going to open up all the lakes. I started a grassroots letter writing campaign that kicked them in the rear, that forced them to open up those lakes. Now, over 18,000 people who live in the district who like using the lakes have access to the lakes. We need people who are driven and don't wait for the problem to come to them. I've always been proactive. I've always gotten out in front, and I'm not afraid to stand up to do what's right. I stood up to 2 governors, and at the same time, I did 453 bills with Dems. Downtown loves to say that I'm a knuckle dragger, conservative, and they didn't even know when the UT interviewed me that I did 453 bills with Democrats, more than any other Republican. Yet I had the most conservative Republican vote. Being a conservative doesn't mean that you can't get things done. But I wrote the privacy law on your cell phone. I also divested our public pensions from Iran. I did a lot of things that make great sense, that improve our community. And I want to lift people in my community. And I've never found a job that was more rewarding than public service. And I'm asking to be given another opportunity to serve you.
Well, if elected, we look forward to seeing what you do for the County of San Diego. And I do want to leave us with one last word to our attendees here. As your government affairs director, I can't begin to stress to you how incredibly important it is that you do vote in November and that you are informed, because it does affect your business. As you can see today, land use decisions go through the county, they go through SANDAG, and they go through your local governments, and they affect how, our housing stock and how your clients can buy and sell their homes. It's absolutely critical that you be informed and you vote. And also, please join us for our split roll event that we'll be having on August 25th, because as Mr. Anderson talked about, it can completely decimate a lot of our businesses and definitely change our way of life. So I want to thank former Senator Joel Anderson for being here today, and Jan Ryan, our board member here at the North San Diego County Association of Realtors, for interviewing and leading the meeting. So I appreciate it. Thank you all today for coming.